Hi, it's LaTanya Moore here with Real Perspectives, and I have Mr. Naresh Visa, who is an employee turned millennial entrepreneur. He is the founder and CEO of Krish Media and Marketing and the co-founder and publisher of Moneyball Economics and the Moneyball Trader. He is also a #1 best-selling author of a couple of books. One is The 50 Shades of Marketing, Whip Your Business into Shape and Dominate Your Competition. The other is Podcastnomics, the book of podcasting to make you millions. Now, he's been featured in publications like Deseret News, TheStreet.com, Entrepreneur.com, and CIO Magazine. He is here today to talk about entrepreneurship and to share his expertise. Naresh, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, LaTanya. It's a pleasure to be on. Looking forward to chatting.
Awesome. So I love all these stories about people that have walked away from the corporate world to enter the world of entrepreneurship. I have a similar story myself. So when I saw yours, I was like, yes, great. Now I have a millennial who's done it. But you gave up a very lucrative corporate career and a lot of luxuries and the luxuries that it provides to go after the things that we've talked about. Tell us about that journey.
Sure, LaTanya. So I grew up very similar to most people in this country, thinking you go to school and you get a job at a company. And I think, unfortunately, the way our educators, the way they teach students today, that's the only option they have. Entrepreneurship or the idea of value creation is not really taught in schools, and that's because most people don't understand these terms themselves. In my case, I actually started my first business. It wasn't legally, but I unofficially started my first business when I was a college student, and it was by accident. And my experience doing that, I started a financial media, you can call it a financial media consulting company. My experience doing that, and this was before 2010, this was still, the first decade of the new millennium. What I learned was that I could make it on my own. I could make money on my own without working for anyone. I could create my own value. I could basically do what I wanted career-wise, but the challenge was scaling it. Now, I went on to graduate school and worked at a company while still running my side, I can call it a side business. And so by the time I left the corporate environment and took over my side business full time, within a month, it's like I gave myself a 20% raise from what I was making in the corporate world. And you brought up the corporate job that I had. It was a 9-to-5 type of job. The pay was extremely well. It was a 6-figure salary plus bonus type of arrangement. I was given a personal trainer. There was a gym in our offices, so I was given a personal trainer along with a lot of different other perks. But the one difference or really the one attribute that I really wanted that a corporate job didn't give me, and I would say most corporate jobs don't give their employees, is freedom. And that's the freedom to work your own schedule, the freedom to be able to live freely and not worry about someone breathing down your back or checking up on you or making sure that you're at your desk at 9 a.m. in the morning. The freedom that you get with entrepreneurship is a very, very worthwhile endeavor to embark on. So in my case, I took over my side hustle, turned it into a business, and I gave myself a raise. And then about a year after that, I don't want to say I switched, but I added on from a service offering to a product offering. So now I have a couple of businesses, one service business, Krish Media and Marketing, and a couple of product-oriented businesses where we're actually selling products. And the benefit with that is product-oriented businesses are easier to scale than service-oriented businesses. So when it comes to consulting or other services, your time is what you're charging for, really. Whereas when it comes to products, their time really is not a factor in scalability. It's really all about how much you can sell. So that's just a quick rundown of how I got started in entrepreneurship and my transition from corporate life to the entrepreneurial world.
Awesome. So were there any changes that you would say that you had to make transitioning from the corporate world to entrepreneurship?
Immense changes. I remember my first month making that transition. I was working, I had to go from working in an office to working at home. And it sounds great to be able to work at home, but I remember that first month, I was living in Baltimore, Maryland at the time, and it was a very lonely process because I would be done with my work or I would have gaps in between my work, and I had no idea to do with myself. Whereas when you're in an office building, you have other colleagues around you. It's the fact that you know that there's someone else breathing down your neck. You're always on your toes. But in this case, you determine your fate. You pave your own path. You create your own opportunities. And so that was a big transition. That first month, it was like, whoa, here I am alone in my condo in Baltimore, and I don't know what to do with myself. But what I did, I developed, I don't want to say a system, but I developed a discipline to always keep myself busy, whether it was professionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally. I started going to the gym every day, or I should say 4 to 5 days a week. So that helped me physically, but it also helped me mentally. So mentally, I started, during that downtime, I started to read more about my industry. And so as a result, I read all sorts of blogs and books and gained all sorts of knowledge about my industry that helped me become a better entrepreneur and a better member of that industry. Emotionally, I actually cut down on my social life, not necessarily because I don't like people, but because I was so focused on getting started and making that transition as smooth as possible. So personally, not only did I stop going out, but I stopped drinking alcohol. I got rid of a lot of devices because I wanted to keep myself mentally focused. And then spiritually, I just, going from when you start a business, especially going from corporate to entrepreneurship, it makes you thankful for a lot of things, because when you're in a corporate job, every 2 weeks exactly what you're getting paid. There's not a lot of risk. There's a good amount of stability. There's not really a lot of negative stuff that you have to deal with when it comes to your lifestyle or planning for the future. The only thing that you might want to plan for in the corporate world is when the economy goes bad, you might get cut. Or, if you don't meet your standards or the company's standards, you might get fired. But in entrepreneurship, everything is an uncertainty. And so you really start to be thankful for what you do have rather than what you don't. You're thankful for the money that's coming through the door. You're thankful for, living in the apartment or the home that you're living in. You're thankful for your friends and your family. You don't notice all that working in a corporate environment where you become complacent with your job or your role, which, by the way, can be very, very easily eliminated. And I can guarantee you that when that next recession hits, and it's going to hit because that's how the business cycle works, when it does hit, whether it's next year or 5 years from now, it's going to give companies the excuse to get rid of individuals and jobs and to downsize.
Wow, that's really interesting, because I think that a lot of the things that you took into account, a lot of the sacrifices that you made because you are an entrepreneur, honestly, quite frankly, most millennials don't even think about it, which is probably why a lot of people just have jobs. So that's really awesome. I love that. Now, in addition to Krish, you have a trading advisory service called the Moneyball Trader. So tell us about that venture.
Yeah, sure. But one thing I want to add about what you said, which I think is very important, we'll get to Moneyball after this, but you brought up millennial entrepreneurs. And I think it's important to state that I got started when I was in my mid-20s. And that's very, very different from getting started when you're in your 30s or 40s if you're married and you have a family. I'm in my late 20s now, but if I was in a situation, and I'm just saying it, if this was the case where I had a family to provide for, I didn't have, a huge nest egg in savings, then going the entrepreneurial route is an incredible risk to take. Even in my case, where I went from corporate to independent, and I told you that I gave myself a 20% raise, or I didn't give myself, but essentially looking back, it was a 20% raise that I ended up making by making that transition. It's a very, very risky proposition to take, and I'm very fortunate that when I got started, I was in my mid-20s. I was single, not married, didn't have any kids, and so the way I looked at it was, let's give this a try, and if it doesn't work out, I can always go back and get a corporate job. As far as qualifications go, I knew that I could go back and get a regular job. So I think it's very important that millennials understand this concept of value creation, of entrepreneurship, and of getting started early after you develop a proper skill set. So yes, I did work in the corporate world so that I could develop a skill set and make contacts within the industry. But then I went out on my own and decided to stay out on my own because, once again, I think it's definitely worth it to give it a shot.
Great advice. Great advice. I love it. And you're right. A lot of times we don't really talk about those extra factors, the family, the fact that you're a little bit older, so you've made certain commitments that younger people don't make. So that's really great advice. And so but in addition to that, though, you are working with Moneyball. So talk with us about that.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that after getting my service business, Krish Media Marketing, up and running, I wanted to supplement that income with something that was more product-oriented. So I first started so my background, LaTanya, is in publishing. I'm a financial publisher. What that means is I publish investment research and sell that research to the public. Now, the service business that I have, Krish Media and Marketing, is essentially everything that I've learned about selling financial research. It's mostly, online business related. And so we offer online business services to everyday companies, any company. It could be a restaurant or it could be a large multi-billion-dollar bank. The skill set, the services that we offer are the same. Now, when it comes to financial publishing, the first company I started was a digital currency publishing company. We published research on digital currencies. About a year after I started that, I sold my equity stake in the business because I sold it to my business partner because I didn't really like the direction that digital currency industry was heading. So after I did that, I started Moneyball Economics, which is a big data financial publishing company, financial and economic publishing company. We publish research related to economic data and trends, as well as we have a trading advisory. It's a subscription service. People pay, they pay us to receive this research and information, and we tell people exactly what to do with their money or what to do with their investments on a weekly time horizon. We use heavy big data analysis to forecast earnings of publicly traded companies, and using that data and that analysis, we're able to give recommendations to our subscribers saying, hey, here are the 3 or 4 companies that we're tracking this week. This is what you should do with them. You should buy this, buy that, or sell this, sell that. And so the way I got that started was when I was working on a project in Silicon Valley a few years ago. I was introduced by a gentleman who happened to be a former chief economist at Cisco, the big technology company, and he went out on his own to start a research, data, financial, economic research company. And we were introduced, and I saw what he was doing with his business, and I said, there's an opportunity to take what you're currently doing and repurpose it for the retail market, because what he was doing at the time was institutional. All of his clients were banks and essentially Wall Street. That was his client. I said, we need to bring what you're currently doing to the mainstream. And so that's how we started talking, and we started this company, Moneyball Economics. And now we have our free product, which is at moneyballeconomics.com, then our paid product, the Moneyball Trader, which is a subscription product at themoneyballtrader.com. And we're growing every month, which is definitely encouraging. And we are frequently interviewed by the media, referenced by the media, Wall Street Journal, Business Insider, tons of podcasts, radio shows have covered us.
Awesome. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Because I think that is, everyone wants to know what to do with their money. Because clearly a lot of us have no idea. So, again, as far as this, because this seems to be a common theme. You're involved in what was it, digital currency, so that's money, and now you're advising people on how to take their money and what to invest in and things like that. So I could definitely see a graduation, for lack of a better word, in the services that you provide. But in addition to those things, you also wrote 2 books. One is The 50 Shades of Marketing, Whip Your Business into Shape and Dominate Your Competition. And the other one is Podcastnomics, the book of podcasting to make you millions. Talk with us about the marketing side, though, because I like the fact that you mentioned about being able to connect with your business partner and kind of bringing your marketing expertise to what he was already doing and identifying a new vertical or at least a new industry that he could tap into. So talk with us about that.
Sure, LaTanya. So we live in a 21st century global and digital economy. This is unlike what many Gen Xers. This is unlike how they grew up or how they've worked or what they've lived in. And what I mean by that, LaTanya, is, let me give you an example. What I do today, my job today, did not exist 15 or 20 years ago. It just didn't. But the reason why I'm able to do what I do today and make a living and live the life that I'm able to live is because of today's 21st century digital economy. The internet has become an absolute necessity for the conducting of business. It doesn't matter what your business is. You need to have a digital footprint. You need to utilize the 21st century resources that are available to you in order to gain that competitive advantage and to stay in business. So there are countless examples of companies that have gone bankrupt because they weren't doing that properly. If you look at so many of these newspapers, you look at even the publishing industry being put out of business by the likes of Amazon or iTunes or the rise of audiobooks. Barnes & Noble stores are shutting down. They've been shutting down for the past few years on a weekly basis, one by one. Bookstores are archaic, and it's not because people aren't interested in reading books. People are still reading books, but they're interested in audiobooks or Kindles or buying their books online through an Amazon, for example. So in this case, I learned firsthand, really through my corporate experience, because I worked at a leading financial publishing company, but it was also a leading online marketing company. The reason why they were a leading financial publishing company is because they understood the online marketplace. So I was able to learn the nooks and the crannies and then apply it to Krish Media and Marketing, my company, and help tons and tons of businesses over the years. And then really the experience that I got helped me form that relationship with my partner at Moneyball Economics, because again, my partner is a guy, he's not a millennial. Most of his experience was in the 80s and the 90s, really the 90s. It was I don't want to say pre-internet, but it was really pre-internet or pre-e-commerce. And so he didn't really understand what he had. And I was able to go to him and tell him, this is what you have. And these are the opportunities that exist. This is how we can make money off of it. This is what you're not doing. So, again, LaTanya, there's so many opportunities out there for people to take their businesses to the next level, to make money. So many opportunities. You just have to look in front of you. The resources are right there, and that's why I wrote my book, 50 Shades of Marketing, Whip Your Business into Shape and Dominate Your Competition, because I tell people exactly how they can go about utilizing these resources and making money off of it from scratch. I tell them how to make a website, how to set up a shopping cart, why blogging is important, why podcasting is important, how you can make money off ebooks or how to publish a book, Facebook, Twitter, social media, LinkedIn, why it's important to have presences on these social networks. If you're a brick and mortar business, you want to be on Craigslist, you want to be on Yelp, you want to be on TripAdvisor. I lay out all of this stuff in the book, and it's been received incredibly well. The reviews have been great, and I recommend that your listeners take a look at it because they can definitely learn a lot from it.
That's really good because, it's interesting that you say that because I work with a wide variety of clients. I mean, everything from politicians to small business owners to medium-sized business owners. And it is amazing still today the number of folks that, although they might have a Facebook page, there's nothing on it. There's absolutely no level of engagement of social media at all. And I'm shocked. And what I do is not primarily marketing, but I sort of cringe and I say, well, these are the 37 reasons, why you need to do that. So I bring that up just to say that to have that all encompassed in one book, 50 Shades of Marketing, guys, whip your business into shape and dominate your competition, I think is really key, because you do have a lot of folks that for whatever reason, they believe that word of mouth is still word of mouth. And I've been saying for a long time, no, social media is the new word of mouth, whether you like it or not. That's what it is. And so when you understand that, and then you understand the dynamics of how to work that, that is your marketing. And it's, oh my gosh, it's so much cheaper than marketing of old.
Absolutely.
So it's mind blowing why people don't take advantage of this. I mean, have you run into that at all, or are you really working in that space where people are already receptive to it and they're just looking to take it to the next level?
Well, LaTanya, let me tell you, you just brought up word of mouth marketing, and I will say that social media is the new word of mouth marketing. So they actually go hand in hand. Word of mouth marketing is the best type of marketing that any business or product can get. Word of mouth holds way more credence than any other type of marketing. But the way word of mouth marketing is done today is drastically different than the ways it was done 20 years ago. Drastically different. And you brought up, for example, that you work with politicians. And I think the politicians are actually a great example, the mainstream politicians, because I actually have data and can use them as examples. But if you look at 2008, President Obama is the first mainstream politician to bring social media and the internet into mainstream politics. The social media presence that President Obama had in 2008 really, when nobody had ever even heard of him before 2008, he did a tremendous job of going up against a kind of status quo, big name individual in Hillary Clinton. But what Obama did was he created a hype and a presence online, on YouTube, on social media. At the time, it was Facebook. It was really Facebook and YouTube. Those were the two big social media online marketplaces back then. And he just he took over those two media, whereas it was like the Clintons thought, oh, we got this in the bag because we're the Clintons. And they didn't focus at all on the online marketplace. And it was a major reason why Obama kind of came out of nowhere and defeated her and went on to become, and then the same is true with who he faced in 2008, Senator John McCain, who had close to zero online and social media presence. So it helped Obama in 2008 tremendously, and in 2012, and this is even cited in 50 Shades of Marketing, his campaign actually published a study that showed that the more emails that they sent out to their email list, to their followers via email, the greater the impact they had on donations, on favorability ratings. And so what that showed was, don't be afraid to send out emails to your followers. Well, first off, it showed you should develop an asset base of emails so that you can directly reach out to your followers instead of calling them up or direct mailing them. Now you had this email format that you could directly reach each individual fan of yours. And it also showed that the unsubscribe rate was almost negligible. So even when you're sending out more emails, you might think, oh, people might get tired of it and they'll unsubscribe. That was not true. That was not true with Obama in 2012. It's almost like people wanted to keep hearing from him. So he really, his campaigns mastered the art of online media, and it's a major reason why he came out of nowhere and became a 2-term president. Now, in this current election, when it comes to online and social media, now both campaigns, Clinton and Trump, it's 8 years now since 2008, and both campaigns have done a tremendous job of utilizing the online marketplace to raise funds and to build their following. So, for example, there was a study, or not a study, but a report published yesterday that said that Trump raised close to $100 million in a matter of 4 days. And he was self-funding most of his campaign previously, but he needed to raise money, and he was able to raise more than $50 million in a 4-day period because of the internet, because of the ability to capture all those people who supported him and to send out the campaign that he ran was autographed copies of his book. If you donate something, like $400 to his campaign, then you get mailed an autographed copy of his book. And over a 4-day period, they raised more than $50 million. That's not happening in the 80s or the 90s. Nobody is raising that amount of money in over a 4-day period pre-internet. It's impossible to do. It's humanly impossible to do.
Absolutely. And you bring up you just point out so many different points, great points about just the value in this. And I was thinking when you were talking about the subscribe and unsubscribe, because for a long time, and I have to admit this, but for a long time, I did not want to do email marketing. I felt like it was just an invasion. And I had someone like yourself who said, this is why you should do email marketing. And I tried it out, and our list has grown like crazy. Most recently, I started something new, and our list probably doubled within 2 months. And that's low. I mean, it shouldn't even take that long. So you're absolutely right, though, about email marketing and about just the impact and the way that people view it. Now, I always say it's very similar to the reason that cable TV is quickly on the decline. Everyone wants the convenience of looking at something when they want to watch it. They don't want to have to be in front of the TV at 7 o'clock on Tuesdays. They want to be able to pick it up on demand. Same thing with email. They don't want you to call them on their cell phone or on their house phone in the middle of dinner. They would like to be able to look at this and decide what they're going to do in their own time. And so I think the psychology of it is very similar. And thank you so much for bringing that out, because I've seen it work. And guys, listen, his book is called 50 Shades of Marketing, Whip Your Business into Shape and Dominate Your Competition, because just the nuggets that he's provided with us just in this moment are so valuable. So I can't imagine the rest of it that's in the book. And before we leave, we're going to make sure that you guys know where to get all of his books. I do want to shift a bit and talk about your other book, Podcastnomics, the book of podcasting to make you millions. Talk with us about the principles behind that book.
LaTanya, I got started in the online marketplace because of podcasting. I was recruited when I was in the corporate world. I was recruited to start an online radio podcasting network. And this was at a time when terrestrial radio was going through a major transformation. It was really I don't even want to say purgatory, it was really just on the decline. And my experience had been in older media, so newspapers, AM, FM, terrestrial radio. My experience creating this online radio network is what exposed me to the digital marketplace and the opportunities that existed within it. With podcasting, the benefit of podcasting over mainstream terrestrial radio or television, cable television, is podcasting is an active form of content consummation. It's active. And what I mean by that is people who listen to podcasts are people who actually go on their iPhone and hit the podcast app and find a podcast and hit the subscribe button. Or they go to a website and subscribe to an email list to get the podcast. Whereas people who watch passively CNN or Fox News, it's generally people who have it running while they're working or cooking or doing something else. Or if they are watching it, they're watching it during their downtime. There's no set time, like I need to watch CNN at 7 o'clock every evening. No, you're going to watch bits and pieces of it over the course of whenever you have downtime. As a result, it's passive. So you have no idea what's going to be coming up. They could be interviewing any guests. They could be covering any sort of news topics. But with podcasting, you know exactly who you're listening to. You know who the host is. You know what the topic is going to be about or what the subject matter of the show. And so and the episodes are going to be delivered right to your podcast app or to your email inbox. So this is a very active, qualified, and I say qualified because it takes a very sophisticated, qualified individual to own an iPhone and to know how to use, the podcast app. It takes a certain level of qualification to do so. And so as a podcaster, you know that you're getting a very qualified audience. It's not going to be as big as the passive audience that CNN gets. That could be a few 100,000 people or hundreds of thousands of people at any given hour or minute. But you know that the people who are listening to you is equivalent to giving a speech in front of the same amount of people. So if you have 1,000 podcast listeners, that's equivalent to giving a speech in front of 1,000 people in an auditorium. Whereas Soledad O'Brien or Aaron Burnett or Anderson Cooper, they can't say the same. They can't go to work making that statement. They can't go to work saying, oh, today 1,000 people are going to be listening to me in an auditorium. That's not necessarily true.
Wow, that is such a wonderful perspective. I've never thought about that at all. So with that though, and the reason why it's resonating so much with me, I've done speaking engagements for, oh my gosh, many, many years now. And I always say that I always get a better return at a speaking engagement than I do when I'm on a radio show, if that makes sense. In terms of follow-up, in terms of products, and all of those. And I often wondered why, and I came to the conclusion that, and this is very similar to what you're saying, the psychology that works along with podcasting, is that these particular people are coming to this event to see me or whoever else is there because we specifically have a topic that they're interested in versus, okay, who's on CNN today? Like there's no pre-advertising necessarily about who's going to be on there. They'll tell you about the story and things like that. So you're absolutely right, and I love it. But let me ask you this. So taking that into account, though, what would be one or two ways that a podcaster could leverage that to turn those into dollars?
Now you have a qualified audience, people who like you, people who will listen to you. The monetization part actually becomes easy once you develop that qualifying audience. So there are three ways to monetize a podcast. Number one is a traditional way, which I don't recommend. I mean, you can certainly do it, but it's not a very sustainable way to monetize a podcast, and that's advertising. That's your old school AM/FM terrestrial advertising model. So you've developed this audience, and you go out, you get advertisers, not just for your podcast, where you play a commercial, or you're doing a reader, Howard Stern style, where you're recommending one of your advertisers. But you also get advertisers for your website, banners on your website, email dedicated that you send out to your email list, social media advertising, you recommend them on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, post about them. That's the first way to monetize. The second way to monetize is selling an existing product. So most podcasters, in fact, I would probably say all podcasters, there's an underlying motive. They're not just doing it because they want to talk in front of a microphone. Most of these people either have an existing business or an existing product that they're looking to sell. Whether you're an accountant looking to bring in new clients for your business, or you are an author who is looking to sell a book, most people will have something that they can promote through their podcast. So in that case, the podcast becomes an incredible lead-generating tool. The third way to monetize is through premium content. So you give away your podcast for free, but on top of that, you create a paywall, a special paying-only members podcast where people get access to your deepest secrets or your best content. In my case, I started an online financial radio network of podcasts. So we charged individuals a subscription fee to get access to premium content, to get access to stock tips or individual stock recommendations, interviews with very highly qualified CEOs and executives within the industry, insight and analysis on individual companies or industries or stocks. So that's how we were able to come out with premium content.
Awesome. I love it. So what would be the one piece of marketing advice that you would give to our Real Perspectives listeners? They're entrepreneurs, or they have a product or service that they're promoting. What's the one big marketing tip that you would give them?
We live in a 21st century digital world. People are now more connected than ever before, globally, not just here in the United States, but globally. Don't ignore the online and digital marketplace. You must be active on it in order to sustain your business and to adapt to the ever-evolving environment that we live in. The other thing I want to say is email marketing is the most important marketing that you can do. It's more important than billboard advertising, radio advertising, pay-per-click, social media. So if you can find a way, if you're a business person and you currently have a database of emails, start email marketing. It's the best thing you can do. And you can learn more about all these strategies, techniques, philosophies by getting my book, 50 Shades of Marketing, available barnesandnoble.com, Amazon, audiobooks available on Audible and iTunes. It's pretty easy to find.
Awesome. So how can our listeners keep in touch with you and follow what you guys are doing?
If you are interested in our services at Krish Media and Marketing, we offer pretty much any online or digital service imaginable. Krish, K-R-I-S-H, MediaMarketing.com. If you want to subscribe to my newsletter, it's free mailing list. Go to NareshVissa.com. That's my first name and last name, NareshVissa.com. Get on that mailing list, and we will certainly send you very valuable information.
Awesome. Well, Real Perspectives listeners, you have heard it yourself. We're going to make sure if you come to our website right after the show, we're going to have all of those live links right there so that you can get in touch with Naresh and make millions with your podcast. And Naresh, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been so enlightening to me, and I know that our listeners are going to benefit from listening to the show today.
Thanks, LaTanya. It was a pleasure being on.
Awesome. So, Real Perspective listeners, until next time, I'm your host, LaTanya Moore, where we seek real people with real issues and real solutions from real perspectives.